This hobby affords us the opportunity to span lifetimes, to trade stories, to trade information with people that we love and people that have come before us, to leave a lasting legacy for those that will follow after. Numismatics is an opportunity for families to learn about their histories and their information. The following video is about such a family. This is one of the gentlemen I work with. His name is Reese. And this is his grandfather, John. And they talk a little bit about things that happen and how they got their coins. And some of it, the family never knew about. Please watch, sit back and enjoy, and learn a little bit about the sharing of numismatics. Numismatics affords us an opportunity to share things across the lifetimes, to learn things about those who came before us, and to share things with those who will come after we have passed. This interview is about one such story. This is about a guy I work with and his granddad. Reese and John have been collecting coins for a number of years, but it wasn't until this interview that Reese learned how his grandfather got his coins. Check out this interview. Enjoy the story. We'll talk with you later. Tell me your story.
Okay. So you want me to start to
Absolutely.
this point? Okay. Well, I don't know if the story is glamorous or not, but like you were mentioning, they're all kind of interesting in their different way. My dad, who he was born in 1908, so he went through the Great Depression, as you were mentioning, and he was a policeman in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you're going, yep. So, and he was a beat cop, which meant he walked around. At that time, initially in the evening, third shift, and so he'd be walking around checking stores and making sure things were okay and doors were locked and all the rest of it. And then as he did that, he picked up coins, basically, on the street, and not that the coins weren't worth much, but I mean he didn't know. It's kind of like you were indicating, look. In those days, I mean, a quarter's a quarter and a penny's a penny. And it wasn't necessarily that it was a 1862 penny. It was the fact that it was a penny.
Right.
And so anyway, going through that Depression area, and I was born in 1938. So I was, way after the Depression, however, went through World War II, et cetera. And there were tough times during all those times. And, we went through food stamps and all the rest of that. However, he kept collecting these. And I have to say, I didn't know anything about that. Nothing whatsoever. He passed away in 1994. And at that time, my mother said, Johnny, there's a box over here for you from Dad. And I was completely unaware of anything. It was a small little lockbox. And it said, for son John. And I opened it up, and lo and behold, inside, there were 611 coins of various denominations. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, half dollars, silver dollars, and a $2.50 gold piece. And I was just astounded. I mean, I had no clue. And it also in there were a bunch of old dollar bills. It was a I don't know, I have in a lockbox at the bank. It's a 1923 or 1929 dollar, which was a large oversized dollar. And at the time, I said, well, why would Dad just, have these here? She said, I don't know. That was his thing. He just, collected those things, put them in the box. And I remember going way back when I was, 8 years old, perhaps thereabouts. Um, he had in his bedroom area closet a box of with this box that I'm referencing, and also a box of marbles. And I'd go in there every once in a while and steal a few marbles, and go out and play marble. That was one of the games at the time. Playing marbles in any brewery area, etc. in the neighborhood. And I had no idea that right next to it was this box with, I may have taken a quarter here or there, or, get a few candy bars. I don't know what my mentality was at 8 years old. But anyway, he continued to do this stuff in secret. And every once in a while, he would say, "Hey, you kids still play marble?" And I said, "Yeah." And he'd go in and come back out of the closet area and, give me a half a dozen marbles or a dozen marbles. And I was kind of like act surprised that, "Oh, wow, Dad, where'd you get these?" But knowing all the time that they were there, and I didn't kind of like help myself, but I'd always kind of get 3 or 4 so I could get into a marble game. So he collected all these over that period of time, and left them to me. So I did not collect a lot of all these coins that I have. And at the time, I should make a side note. He had showed me at one time a $20 gold double eagle, and I had never ever been able to find that after he passed away. Because I specifically went through his dresser drawers and various things in bedroom, etc. He had a knack of hiding things. He put a coin underneath a drawer because he had showed me one time. Put it underneath the door, and he put a piece of tape over it. Figuring that anybody broke in the house, they would probably not look in someplace obscure as that. So and at the time, after he passed away, we gave a lot of furniture, dresser drawer, bed, et cetera, to some of the family members, because my mother was still living, and she didn't have any need for some of it. And every time we give something away, I used to tell my mother, make sure I'm there before he gives that away, because I wanted to check the drawers and whatever. I'd never found it. I found 1,300 $1 bills in various and sundry places around the apartment. Never did find that coin. But in the box, he left me a $2.50 gold piece, but Indian head gold piece. So anyway, that's kind of the story. None of these were collected by me personally.
So you said something that it's kind of common through people who have done the Depression era, and that is hiding money. My great-grandmother used to wrap money in the freezer. She would put it in old coffee tins, wrap it in tinfoil, and put it in the freezer. They would also stitch money into her dresses. So when she passed away, you had to go through every article of clothing. You had to unwrap everything in the pantry. You had to unwrap everything in the freezer, because you never knew where they would hide money. So it's cool to hear that, because it's kind of a common thing with certain families to say, people hid money, and you had to check everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I know we pulled up the carpet, and they lived in the house that they lived in at the time when he passed away. I wanted to replace the carpet for my mother. So anyway, we pulled up the carpet, and the same thing. I said, I want to pull her up myself. And my mother was kind of like, why? I was living in Tennessee, and she's in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I said, just trust me, mother. I like to do it myself. My reasoning was that I wanted to check underneath the carpet any place that, there might be some obscure place where, he had a little slit in the carpet and would stick something in there. I had no idea. He never had a bank account. He never trusted banks. again, probably common during that era because of the Great Depression, problems that they had, et cetera. I mean, I mean, he would, any bill that he had to pay, he would go personally to the bank and pay in cash. Um, and my mother got in that same habit of paying in cash. Now, after he had passed away, I opened up a checking account for my mother at the bank and all the rest of that. But she was still prone to paying everybody in cash. She'd, order prescription drugs and they would, do a delivery. And, whether it was $20 or $120, she'd pay in cash. And I keep saying, Mother, you can't do that. I mean, you don't know who's coming to the door. She lived up, she was heading for 96 years old when she passed away. Still, complete faculties, et cetera, et cetera. And we had to go to the drugstore, my wife and I, and give them a credit card that they would put on file and charge it to that credit card so that she didn't have to pay cash. But, I mean, she still would, want to give them a tip. It's just kind of like that. That was the thing that they just had to do it. It was just so strange. I mean, in this day and age where cash is almost obscure, in those days, cash was king, no question about it.
Yeah, well, people, I don't know how to say this. It's tangible, right? It's something that
Sure.
And so when you would buy or sell items, it was for something.
Yeah.
How can you get something for nothing? So the idea of credit or the idea of a digital currency just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So,
right.
even writing a check, it was hard to get my grandmother and my grandfather to write checks. Because they were like, we'll just pay cash. And my granddad always carried way too much money on him. Now back then it was a little bit safer.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be carrying wads of cash like he did then, but yeah, so very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I said, my dad was a policeman and, retired as a policeman, et cetera. And he was a husky, pretty well set guy. And, had a gun in the house, et cetera, all the time. So, I mean, there wasn't like a fear of somebody going to break into the house. However, at one point, when he was, up in years, and 70s, 80s, whatever, somebody followed him into the house. And he went in the house, and he went downstairs. He must have had some money down. I don't know why he would come in the house and go directly down into a cellar. But a guy came in and followed him, and my mother, was aware of somebody had come into the house, so she went over to see and saw this guy down. So, she yelled at him and started calling the police. But I mean, my dad never had any fear for his life. I mean, he was ready, willing, and able to box somebody in the ears and shoot him or whatever. I mean, but you get older and less aware of things that are going on around you, or don't hear as well, et cetera, et cetera. Strange things can happen. So anyway, he he just kind of like did what he wanted to do. When he wanted to go to the bank, I think in later years there used to be a problem with cashing checks. I mean, you couldn't just go to any bank and cash a check. So he would go to what I remember him saying, at the time anyway, federal banks were obliged to cash a check for somebody. And so he'd always, search out one of those banks and cash a retirement check or payroll check, whenever that era was, and then carry cash around. I mean, I never remember him doing anything but cash. Now, look, when I set up the checking account for my mother, she thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, she used to write checks for, one of my nieces would go up and, give her a song and dance, and she just write a check, and she thought this was great. She didn't have to fool around with any money. Boy, this was wonderful. And I had to go up and check the account and make sure that she wasn't overdrawn or anything in what she was doing all this. And she could never figure out how I knew all the time some of the things that she did, because I'd always ask her, some obscure question like, "Yeah, was so and so around? I didn't. Were they up in Erie? Oh yeah, they were here a couple of weeks ago. Oh, well, how were they? I mean, did they need money, or I would kind of lead into it anyway. The checkbook always had a duplicate underneath the original back. So I drew everything, all the things that and my purpose was to make sure I could continue to balance the checkbook for her, so she would still have money in there, what she wanted to do on her first strange thing. Anyway, so I'm kind of rambling a little bit. It's a little bit of a long story, but like you're saying, I suspect mine is, maybe different in some ways, but probably very similar to, some of the other situations you've encountered. We have here that $2.50 gold piece. Indian head. Can you see this right up here? Does that?
Yeah, any.
No, we reached it. It's got it.
Yeah, that's a beauty. What is that? 1920 what?
$2.50 gold piece from 1911.
Oh, see, that's a gorgeous piece.
Yeah. I can send pictures afterwards too, so it'll be clear.
Say that again?
I can send you pictures afterwards too, so there'll be clearer images.
Yeah, I've actually got some pictures of some gold eagles, the quarter eagles. So, but yeah, gorgeous piece.
Yeah.
So is that your prized possession?
I'm sorry.
Is that your prized possession?
Well, my wife is my prized possession.
What answer? Good answer.
However,
You almost got in there.
Was that a trick question?
No, no.
Yeah, that's one of the older pieces I have. I mean, I have a listing of all the coins that go back to 1860 Indian head penny. But it's a little bit interesting because the oldest coin does not necessarily have to be the highest value coin at this point.
Or no.
Depends on how many were minted at the time and what the mint happened to be. And, a lot of times if it has an S in the back, it means an awful lot, versus a P or the P.
Oh, yeah. Especially in like the Lincoln cents. You get the wheat cents.
Yeah.
1909S or 1910S or 1911S or 1914D. Yes, definitely knowing what you have. The new coins are worth much more than the old ones.
Yeah. Here's can you see that?
Morgan dollar.
An 1893.
Nice. What's the get mark on the back?
No, there's no S mark on this one. I looked and I can't.
Yeah. Did you have another question though? I know that he was talking about a couple things, but it sounded like you wanted to.
No, let's go through his stuff.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good.
Yes, can you see that?
I can. That is a Columbus commemorative.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah, 1893, I think. Is that something?
Yep.
Yeah, 1893. That's cool. Columbian exhibition.
Yeah. He's lost a lot of the coins over the years because he's been giving them to my brothers and I, and then my cousins as well.
Yeah,
so
a bunch of grandkids.
I mean, yeah. So
I probably have maybe a dozen or so left of the 611 that I started with. So I've given away about 600 over the years.
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, and that a lot of them are worth, I guess, a lot of money. But I mean, what am I going to do with it? I got, I have what I need, I guess.
Yeah, and it gets us into it. And, I think one of the things that I think is interesting to start talk about is how he's passed it on to us as well. So when we were younger, we used to get these Sacagawea golden dollars just for, birthdays, doing something around the house, whatever it would be. So that was something, and also the $50, the silver $50. We would just kind of collect those, and we had these little containers that we would keep them all in, and it didn't think of it as money, more as just as, something that was cool to have. It was a really heavy container, I guess, when we were young. But that was probably the first way we got into it. And then once we got a little bit older, we were talking about it before, maybe around when I turned 15 or so, we started to get some of these coins in packages like this for our birthday, or, a random occasion, we would all get a package of stuff. And my little brother actually had a good point, is that getting into it, like seeing and having the tangible coin, helps you understand the significance of, reading about it in the past, or like understanding why, someone would actually keep on to a coin if they've lived through the Great Depression. They kind of just, we can understand it because we've seen that, right? So I think it's a really cool way to pass on that interest by, sharing what you've had. And I mean, I don't have any intention of selling anything that I have, right? Like, it's going to be something that I hold on to for forever. So
Yeah, that's why I'm a collector. I don't like selling the coins.
yeah, there you go. It's one way to collect. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that, so I like doing the books. So I've got, you can't see that very well because of my green screen, but I have every penny from 1909 to today, with the exception of 3. I'm missing 3 of them. I'm going to be buying one next week, which is the 1931S. I mean, obviously I'm missing the 1909 SBDB. But yeah, again, the thing that I appreciate is what I'm seeing on the screen right now. And that is grandson, grandfather enjoying something that's, it's physical, it's tangible. It's something that you can tell him the story. And if you remember something like where you found the coin, or where you picked up the coin, or, the story about your grandfather, your dad, or whatever, that cements a piece of history. It continues a little bit of that family lineage.
Yeah. Well, I don't think either Pace or Reese heard the story of how I came about getting all these coins, and the story, some of the story background of my dad. I mean, it's interesting, as much as we get together for birthdays and Christmas and Easter and the holidays, etc. We usually don't talk about my parents. I mean, they didn't know them, so it's hard. Their older brother Blaze met my dad a couple of years before he passed away, but usually that generation is almost a forgotten generation, to a large degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's less pictures taken then as well. And, the pictures also degrade over time. So it's one of those things that it's not going to be as everlasting as a digital picture that we're taking today, and the thousands that are taken as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, plus a verbal story.
Yeah. So that's another way to pass it on.
Conversation.
Well, and if you think about throughout history, even before writing, everything was done through story, right? And this is why, when I was talking to Reese, we were talking about coins and era coins, and I was like, hey, do you know anybody in your family that collects? And he's like, well, my granddad has a collection. And I was like, well, do you do anything with it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, let's talk. Because I enjoy the story. One thing that I miss, my granddad passed away about 18 years ago. And the one thing that I miss was we talked, and I would hear these stories of time when they were in Germany. And, one of their favorite jokes was, when he would fly in a plane, it's like, well, have you ever been to Germany? He said, I've been there twice. And they're like, oh, where'd you go? I was like, well, we went to Frankfurt. Then we went to, I can't remember what the other one was. It's like, oh, what did you see? It's like, it was really hard to tell. We were there from about 30,000 feet. And obviously they were talking World War II and all that other stuff. Sure. They were all jokes, but I would listen to these stories and listen to people talk about it. Then they would pull out old stamps, or they would pull out old German coins, or they would pull out Axis coins or Allied coins.
Yeah.
And then they would talk about their war stories, and they would talk about being, the mechanics in motor pool or doing whatever. And when I talk about coins, when I look at certain years, and I could talk about what my granddad went through, I can look at some of these coins, and I don't have them upstairs. I should have brought some up with me. But one of the first coins I ever got was a 1930 bust $50.
Yeah.
That's the coin I'm going to pass on.
Yeah.
And so, to see you guys sitting here together and to see this, I know Reese talked about it, I'm going to catalog this because this is family history. And that's what I'm about. I'm about the story. So what other coins do you have there? Do any of them bring any specific relevance or like family specific or family relevant information?
Not really. Like I said, my dad never told me anything about him. So, I mean, I at a loss for knowing where he got him, where he picked him up. I mean, I'm sure there were not $50 or so at all, just laying around the sidewalk when he was walking the beat at night. He probably found pennies, nickels. I mean, we have some Buffalo Head nickels, dimes, etc. But I can't imagine anybody just happened to drop a $50 out of their pocket. So I had no idea. But in those days, if somebody got change for something, you better believe they went through every one to check the dates on them, etc. Nowadays, you could check 1,000 coins from a bank or anywhere and not find anything. I think the banks have some way of calling out the old coins. I don't know if they have a.
Yep. For a bunch of them too.
There you go.
Yeah, this is that oldest one you have, the 1862.
Yeah,
You did. There you go.
Here's that
So this
1862 one.
That's a good looking coin.
Yeah, it's in pretty good shape, isn't it? But yeah, that's this one. What other things do you have? Do you have one other one that you want to show? I know you showed this one already, right?
Yeah. Well, there's some old Indian head pennies. Oh, that's one of them there. Let's see. Here's some.
Yeah, in 1862, that's the third year of that particular coin because I think they came out in 1859.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Of a 1927 nickel. Is that? It's a Buffalo nickel.
Oh, Buffalo Head.
Yeah. Is that? So
Yeah, I really enjoy that. That's in good shape.
yeah, it's in really good shape, and even the back as well. Still very good.
You have that backwards. That's the obverse of the front. The buffalo's the reverse. The front buffalo's the back.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but that's in really good shape. Nice, clean.
Yeah. Oh, so that's a unique one. That's probably one of my most unique. I have a lot of quarters, like he said. His father definitely collected a lot of quarters on the side of the street because that's what he has a lot of too. So I've got, good array through 1904 to 2000 there.
Okay. Now I want you to know that you're showing me one of my very favorite designers. So that's Christian Ulbrich, and that is the seated. Is it a dime or a half dime?
Yeah, dime.
Okay. So they also have the half dime, but the seated variety made by Mr. Ulbrich, who was the first or second mint director, is probably one of my all-time favorite designs of a coin. I absolutely love the seated design. I've actually done a video on him and Adolf Wyman and Mr. Barber. You're talking about that 1904 quarter, so you're talking about Barber quarter.
Yeah.
Absolutely love those. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a coin enthusiast.
Right. I can tell. No, I mean, off the top of your head.
There's some misfits. Yeah, sometimes
It's kind of like you, Reese, when you're talking about program stuff at work.
Yeah, that sounds about right. When I get into the Leapfrog survey, I know what I'm talking about. So we also have a couple of bills. This is, if you can tell, it's a misprint. So the top margin is much larger than the bottom.
Yep.
So I don't know.
What year is that? 83, 88?
Where is that at? 95. Yes.
95. Okay.
And then this one.
Star note. It's got a star by the serial number.
So this is a star note.
And it's not centered.
If you look at this little star.
I'm very familiar with Star Notes.
Yeah. So
So that's a dollars that whenever I was in my third grade and we were learning about dollars and things like that and like uniqueness of them, and my teacher brought that up, a star note, and I talked to my grandfather about that, and then he was like, yeah, I never really knew about that kind of thing, or just learned about it in school, found one day because I was checking every single dollar from like third grade on. And I finally found one, and I was like, I honestly freaked out because I was looking for it learned about a long time ago, and I found it probably when I was like 14 years old in high school. So
That's cool.
every year search, and then I got to bring it back and have that in collection.
Yeah, the holy grail of Star Notes is finding the one that's not supposed to exist. So sometimes you can find its pair, which is the actual bill.
oh,
A couple of those found, and they are extremely pricey.
that's weird.
To the tune of high 5, low 6-figure pricing.
Oh wow. Dang, very rare.
You never find its duplicate somewhere. Yeehaw.
Yeah.
The odds of finding one are slim and none, but you never know.
Yeah, you should find someone that has one that doesn't know they have one, right? And then you can trade up for it or something like that.
Well, there's one gentleman who spent years and he did advertising and stuff like that, that he's looking for a very specific serial number, and they ended up finding it. So I think there was one just went on auction. I don't know what the total price was. I'll have to see if I can do that. When I actually do the publishing of this video, I'll include all that information. That's the magic of editing, right? So
Yeah. Isn't there what's the other one? There's a lead 10 penny from when was it? 1943 maybe?
So you're talking about the steel sense. So here, let me do that. So you're talking about, well, camera's not showing. Actually, let me do this. Let me add another camera to the mix. Send extra camera. And we are going to do this thing. There's spin camera.
What?
Walk. That's in. Clean this up a little bit. You can see this. All right, let's throw the in. So you're talking about this.
Yeah. That's worth some bucks, huh?
They can be. It just kind of depends. They have to be in extremely good condition. If you look at this one, you can see a lot of kind of bumps in the field.
Yeah.
These are in really good shape. Lincoln's very clean. This one has a die crack in it. You can see the die crack that runs here. Actually a crack in the die. There are some errors on these coins that make them very valuable, but you have to have one in really, really, really good condition in order for a coin like this to be worth a lot of money.
Yeah. I used to get those all the time when I was a kid. Never thought I tried to get rid of it as soon as I get them, because I thought this is some kind of funny money. Somebody's full of something. Everything was, the copper variety. It was only to later years I found out that I blew it. They may have been worth some big bucks. You never know.
And if you ever found a copper one, they're worth a lot of money, to the tune of $60,000+ if not more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, copper variety, because the copper demand was so high during the war that they needed the copper in manufacturing, and so they did it with the steel cent.
Yeah.
And so there were some planchets that made it through the process. And there's a lot of people who try to do some tomfoolery. So they will take a steel cent and they will dip it in copper, but they stick to a magnet. So if you have a magnet, they stick to the magnet. So if you ever find a copper one, pull a magnet off your fridge, put it over the top of it. And if it doesn't stick, you're good to go. You're set.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. My background is in metallurgical engineering, so I know what you're talking about. You know.
Oh, you have a little bit of familiarity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about the chemical composition of the coins?
You don't want to get into that.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, not on Easter anyway.
No, well, this is really cool. So what year were you, if I could ask the question, what year were you born?
1938.
Okay.
Said that earlier.
So here's what I find really cool. And this is what I found really fascinating about the other gentleman I wanted to interview. There's a very high likelihood that you held some of the key date cents in your hand as a kid.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
1909, 1911, 1912S, 1914D, 1931S. And it's amazing to go, you tried to get rid of the steel cents as soon as you got them.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a little tidbit. Anytime Reese looks at his steel cent, this is a little piece of information that he wouldn't have had we not had this discussion.
Yeah.
Right? And it's this kind of stuff that fascinates me. These are the kind of stories, these are the little details that I like to learn, because this tells you a lot about the time, right? Your thought about these steel cents was probably very common to others during the time frame.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This is the government throwing funny money at us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money when I was a kid. Obviously, I mean, I made some money here and there, running a newspaper route, that kind of stuff. But I mean, so it wasn't that I could just throw pennies away, but I would kind of like trade them in or try to get rid of them, buying some as soon as I possibly could. I mean, I don't remember what candy cost when I was a kid, but I'm thinking, a nickel or probably less. And that's probably where I spent it. I mean, what does a 8-year-old, 6-year-old kid have any need for money per se? Now, a candy bar, now that was pretty tangible. I mean, I could really enjoy a candy bar.
Yeah. Oh, candy, soda.
Yeah.
All that stuff. You could get, my granddad used to talk to me about, for a nickel, he would go get, 25 pieces of that, like penny candy, and a soda, and it cost him a nickel.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine penny candy costs like 10 cents a piece now.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate, and it was John,
Yes.
John Reese. I thank you guys for your time. I appreciate the opportunity, especially on Easter Sunday, to come alongside and just chit chat. Tell me a little bit about the history. It's good to see you two sitting together and sharing in the joy of a hobby. But share those stories, right? Because that's what Reese is going to take on with them. The coins will come and go, but anytime he runs across that, it's the story that's going to spark that remembrance and it's going to live with him for the rest of his remainder.
Yep. No, Jeremiah, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and having us sit down. Like, we already talked about it. I didn't even know the origination story of my grandfather's coin collection, and very surprised by it. And a little underwhelmed. I thought he was the one collecting this the entire time. He was more disappointed in my own collection. But it sounds like he was in a similar boat that I am. So cool to see, that resemblance there as well.
Well, but the takeaway is that his willingness to maintain it is what allowed for your enjoyment of the numismatic hobby. And so sharing it with you, and then again, this is something that we're losing in society. We just don't sit down and talk. We just don't share those pieces of information. He said, if I remember correctly, as much as we've done stuff together, we've never talked about this.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that opportunity to share in this discussion, it means a lot to me to be able to share it with you. But to just be able to have the conversation with you too, and for you to be able to share and learn about each other. That's what I enjoy. This is what this series is about. So again, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
And you said 1938?
38. Yep. That's
I
right.
sent you something.
Oh,
From
All right.
that,
I'll be sending you something.
all right, Jeremiah. No, thank you. Hope you have a good Easter too.
okay, good deal.
All right, y'all. Take care.
Nice talking.
Be well.